The McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle is an American twin-engine, all-weather tactical fighter designed by McDonnell Douglas to gain and maintain air superiority in aerial combat. It is among the most successful modern fighters, with over 100 aerial combat victories. Following reviews of proposals, the United States Air Force selected McDonnell Douglas design in 1967 to meet the service's need for a dedicated air superiority fighter. The Eagle first flew in July 1972, and entered service in 1976. Since the 1970s, the Eagle has been exported to Israel, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and other nations. The F-15 was originally envisioned as a pure air superiority aircraft. Its design included a secondary ground attack capability that was largely unused. The design proved flexible enough that an all-weather strike derivative, the F-15E Strike Eagle, was later developed, and entered service in 1989. The F-15 Eagle is expected to be in service with the U.S. Air Force past 2025. F-15 versions are still being produced for foreign users, with the F-15 production line set to end in 2019, 47 years after the type's first flight. Development origins. The F-15 can trace its origins, ultimately, to ongoing fights between the USAF and U.S. Navy over tactical support aircraft being used in the Vietnam War. At the time, Robert McNamara was pressing for both services to use as many common aircraft as possible, even if there were performance sacrifices involved. As part of this policy, the USAF and Navy were involved in the TFX program, aiming to deliver a medium-range interdiction aircraft in Air Force use, and a long-range interceptor aircraft for the Navy. In January 1965, McNamara asked the Air Force to consider a new low-cost tactical fighter design for short-range roles and close air support. This would replace a collection of types like the F-100 Super Sabre and a variety of light bomber designs then in service. Two basic designs could fill this role. The Navy favored designs like the A-4 Skyhawk and LTV A-7 Corsair II, pure attack aircraft, while the Air Force was more interested in fighter bombers like the Northrop F-5, fighters with a secondary attack capability. The former were more capable in the tactical role, while the latter might be less so, but were able to defend themselves. If the Air Force did choose an attack design, maintaining air superiority would be a top priority. The next month, a report by Lieutenant Co. John Bonn on light tactical aircraft suggested the Air Force purchase the F-5 or A-7, and consider a new higher performance aircraft to ensure its air superiority. This point was driven home after the loss of two F-105 Thunderchief aircraft to seemingly outdated MiG-15s or MiG-17s on April 4, 1965. In April 1965, Harold Brown, at that time director of the DD&E, stated the favored position was to consider the F-5, and begin studies of the FX. These early studies envisioned a production run of 800 to 1,000 aircraft, and stressed maneuverability over speed. But it also stated that the aircraft would not be considered unless it had some level of ground attack capability. On August 1, Gabriel Dysosway took command of Tactical Air Command and reiterated calls for the FX, but lowered the required performance from Mach 3 to 2.5 in an effort to lower costs. Ultimately, the Air Force would choose the A-7 over the F-5 for the support role on November 5, 1965, giving further impetus to the need for an air superiority design as the A-7 lacked any credible air-to-air capability. An official requirements document was finalized in October, and sent out as a request for proposals to 13 companies on December 8, 1965. 8 companies responded with proposals. Following a down select, 4 companies were asked to provide further developments. In total, they developed some 500 design concepts. Typical designs featured variable sweep wings, weighed over 60,000 pounds, included a top speed of Mach 2.7 and a thrust-to-weight ratio of 0.75. When the proposals were studied in July 1966, the aircraft were roughly the size and weight of the TFX, and like that aircraft, a design that could not be considered an air superiority fighter. Smaller, lighter. Through this period, Studies of combat over Vietnam were producing worrying results. Previous doctrine had stressed long-range combat using missiles, and optimized aircraft for this role. The result was highly loaded aircraft with large radars and excellent speed, but limited maneuverability and often lacking a gun. The canonical example was the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II, used by the USAF, U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps to provide air superiority over Vietnam, the only fighter with enough power, range, and maneuverability to be given the primary task of dealing with the threat of Soviet fighters while flying with visual engagement rules. In practice, both due to policy and practical reasons, aircraft were closing to visual range and maneuvering, placing the larger U.S. aircraft at a disadvantage to the much less expensive day fighters like the MiG-21. Moreover, missiles proved to be much less reliable than predicted, especially in close-range combat. Although improved training and the introduction of the M61 Vulcan did much to address the disparity, these early outcomes led to considerable re-evaluation of the 1963 Project Forecast doctrine. This led to John Boyd's energy maneuverability theory, which stressed that extra power and maneuverability were key aspects of a successful fighter design, and these were more important than outright speed. Through tireless championing of the concepts, and good timing with the failure of the initial FX project, the fighter mafia pressed for a lightweight day fighter that could be built and operated in large numbers in order to ensure air superiority. In early 1967, they proposed that the ideal design had a thrust-to-weight ratio of near 1:1, a maximum speed further reduced to Mach 2.3, a weight of 40,000 pounds and a wing loading of 80 lb/ft². By this time, the Navy had decided the F-111 would not meet their requirements, and began development of a new dedicated fighter design, the VFAX program. In May 1966, McNamara once again asked the forces to study the designs and see if the VFAX would meet the Air Force's FX needs. The resulting studies took 18 months, and concluded that the desired features were simply too different. The Navy stressed loiter time and mission flexibility, while the Air Force was now looking primarily for maneuverability. Focus on air superiority. In 1967 the Soviet Union revealed the MiG-25 Foxbat at the Domodedovo airfield near Moscow. The MiG-25 was designed as a high-speed, high-altitude interceptor aircraft, and made many performance trade-offs to excel in this role. Among these was the requirement for very high speed, over Mach 2.8, which demanded the use of stainless steel instead of aluminum in many locations on the aircraft. The added weight demanded a much larger planform to allow the aircraft to operate at the required high altitudes. However, to observers, it appeared outwardly similar to the very large FX studies, an aircraft with high speed and a large wing offering high maneuverability, leading to serious concern throughout the Department of Defense and the various arms that the U.S. was being outclassed. The MiG-23 was likewise a subject of concern and it was generally believed this was a better aircraft than the F-4. The FX would outclass the MiG-23, but now it appeared that MiG-25 would be superior in speed, ceiling and endurance to all existing U.S. fighters, even the FX. Thus, an effort to improve the FX followed. Both headquarters USAF and the TAC continued to call for a multi-purpose aircraft, but by this time both Di Sosway and Air Chief of Staff Bruce K. Holloway were pressing for a pure air superiority design that would be able to meet the expected performance of the MiG-25. During the same period, the Navy had ended its VFAX program and instead accepted a proposal from Grumman Aircraft for a smaller and more maneuverable design known as VFX. VFX was considerably closer to the evolving FX requirements. The infighting in the Air Force was eventually ended by the worry that the Navy's VFAX would be forced on them, and in May 1968 it was stated that we finally decided, and I hope there is no one who still disagrees, that this aircraft is going to be an air superiority fighter. Final design. In August 1968 a new SOP was prepared. The new requirements called for single-seat fighter having a maximum takeoff weight of 40,000 pounds for the air-to-air roll with a maximum speed of Mach 2.5 and a thrust-to-weight ratio of nearly 1:1 at mission weight. It also called for a twin-engine arrangement as it was believed this would respond to throttle changes more rapidly, and might offer commonality with the Navy's VFX program. However, details of the avionics were left largely undefined, as it was not clear whether to build a larger aircraft with a powerful radar that could detect the enemy at longer ranges, or alternately a smaller aircraft that would make it more difficult for the enemy to detect it. 4 companies submitted proposals, with the Air Force eliminating General Dynamics and awarding contracts to Fairchild Republic, North American Rockwell, and McDonnell Douglas for the definition phase in December 1968. The companies submitted technical proposals by June 1969. The Air Force announced the selection of McDonnell Douglas on December 23, 1969. The winning design resembled the twin-tailed F-15, but with fixed wings. Both designs were based on configurations studied in wind tunnel testing by NASA. The Eagle's initial versions were the F-15 single-seat variant and F-15 twin-seat variant. These versions would be powered by new Pratt & Whitney F-100 engines to achieve a combat thrust-to-weight ratio in excess of 1:1. A proposed 25mm Ford Philco GAU-7 cannon with caseless ammunition suffered development problems. It was dropped in favor of the standard M61 Vulcan gun. The F-15 used conformal carriage of 4 Sparrow missiles like the Phantom. The fixed wing was put onto a flat, wide fuselage that also provided an effective lifting surface. The first F-15A flight was made on July 27, 1972, with the first flight of the 2-seat F-15B following in July 1973. The F-15 has a look-down shoot-down radar that can distinguish low-flying moving targets from ground clutter. The F-15 would use computer technology with new controls and displays to lower pilot workload and require only one pilot to save weight. Unlike the F-14 or F-4, the F-15 has only a single canopy frame with clear vision forward. The USAF introduced the F-15 as the first dedicated USAF air superiority fighter since the North American F-86 Sabre. The F-15 was favored by customers such as the Israel and Japan Air Arms. Criticism from the fighter mafia that the F-15 was too large to be a dedicated dogfighter, and too expensive to procure in large numbers, led to the lightweight fighter program, which led to the USAF General Dynamics F-16 Fighting Falcon and the middleweight Navy McDonnell Douglas Fa-18 Hornet. Further development, the single-seat F-15C and two-seat F-15D models entered production in 1978 and conducted their first flights in February and June of that year. These models were fitted with the production Eagle package, which included 2,000 pounds of additional internal fuel, provisions for carrying exterior conformal fuel tanks, and an increased maximum takeoff weight of up to 68,000 lb. The increased takeoff weight allows internal fuel, a full weapons load, conformal fuel tanks, and 3 external fuel tanks to be carried. The APG-63 radar uses a programmable signal processor, enabling the radar to be reprogrammable for additional purposes such as the addition of new armaments and equipment. The PSP was the first of its kind in the world, and the upgraded APG-63 radar was the first radar to use it. Other improvements on the C and D models included strengthened landing gear, a new digital central computer, and an overload warning system, which allows the pilot to fly the fighter to 9 grams at all weights. The F-15 Multistage Improvement Program was initiated in February 1983 with the first production MSIP F-15C produced in 1985. Improvements included an upgraded central computer, a programmable armament control set, allowing for advanced versions of the AIM-7, AIM-9, and AIM-120A missiles, and an expanded tactical electronic warfare system that provides improvements to the ALR-56C radar warning receiver and ALQ-135 countermeasure set. The final 43 F-15CS included the enhanced capability Hughes APG-70 radar, which was developed for the F-15E. These 43 F-15CS with APG-70 radar are sometimes referred as Enhanced Eagles. Earlier MSIP F-15CS with the APG-63 were upgraded to the APG-63B, one to significantly improve maintainability and enable performance similar to the APG-70. Existing F-15s were retrofitted with these improvements. In 1979, McDonnell Douglas and F-15 radar manufacturer, Hughes, teamed to privately develop a strike fighter version of the F-15. This version competed in the Air Force's dual-role fighter competition starting in 1982. The Boeing F-15E Strike variant was selected for production in 1984. Beginning in 1985, F-15C and D models were equipped with the improved P&W F-100-220 engine and digital engine controls, providing quicker throttle response, reduced wear, and lower fuel consumption. Starting in 1997, original F-100-100 engines were upgraded to a similar configuration with the designation F-100-220E starting. Beginning in 2007, 178 USAF F-15CS were retrofitted with the AN/APG-63 V3 active electronically scan array radar. A significant number of F-15s are to be equipped with the joint helmet-mounted cueing system. Lockheed Martin is working on an IRST system for the F-15C. A follow-on upgrade called the Eagle Passive Active Warning Survivability System was planned but remained unfunded. The EPAWS upgrade will include sophisticated jamming, integrated digital RWR/geolocation and electro-optical/IR threat detection and decoy capabilities. Design Overview. The F-15 has an all-metal semi-monocoque fuselage with a large cantilever shoulder-mounted wing. The empennage is metal and composite construction, with twin aluminum composite honeycomb fins with boron composite skins, resulting in an exceptionally thin tail plane and rudders with all-moving composite horizontal tail surfaces outboard of the fins. The F-15 has a spine-mounted air brake and retractable tricycle landing gear. It is powered by two Pratt & Whitney F-100 axial flow turbofan engines with afterburners mounted side-by-side in the fuselage. The cockpit is mounted high in the forward fuselage with a one-piece windscreen and large canopy to increase visibility. The airframe began to incorporate advanced superplastically formed titanium components in the 1980s. The F-15's maneuverability is derived from low wing loading with a high thrust-to-weight ratio enabling the aircraft to turn tightly without losing airspeed. The F-15 can climb to 30,000 ft in around 60 seconds. The thrust output of the dual engines is greater than the aircraft's weight, thus giving it the ability to accelerate in a vertical climb. The weapons and flight control systems are designed so that one person can safely and effectively perform air-to-air combat. The A and C models are single-seat variants. These were the main air superiority versions produced. B and E models add a second seat behind the pilot for training. E models use the second seat for a weapons systems officer. Visibly, the F-15 has a unique feature vis-à-vis other modern fighter aircraft. It does not have the distinctive turkey feather aerodynamic exhaust petals covering its engine nozzles. This is because the petal design on the F-15 was problematic and could fall off in flight. Therefore they were removed, resulting in a 3% drag increase. Avionics. A multi-mission avionics system includes a heads-up display, advanced radar, inertial guidance system, flight instruments, ultra-high-frequency communications, and tactical air navigation and instrument landing system receivers. It also has an internally mounted, tactical electronic warfare system, identification, friend or foe system, electronic countermeasures suite and a central digital computer. The heads-up display projects, through a combiner, all essential flight information gathered by the integrated avionics system. This display, visible in any light condition, provides the pilot information necessary to track and destroy an enemy aircraft without having to look down at cockpit instruments. The F-15's versatile APG-63 and 70-pulse Doppler radar systems can look up at high-flying targets and down at low-flying targets without being confused by ground clutter. These radars can detect and track aircraft and small high-speed targets at distances beyond visual range down to close range, and at altitudes down to treetop level. The APG-63 has a basic range of 100 miles. The radar feeds target information into the central computer for effective weapons delivery. For close-in dogfights, the radar automatically acquires enemy aircraft, and this information is projected on the heads-up display. The F-15's electronic warfare system provides both threat warning and automatic countermeasures against selected threats. Weaponry and external stores. A variety of air-to-air weaponry can be carried by the F-15. An automated weapons system enables the pilot to perform aerial combat safely and effectively, using the head-up display and the avionics and weapons controls located on the engine throttles or control stick. When the pilot changes from one weapon system to another, visual guidance for the required weapon automatically appears on the head-up display. The Eagle can be armed with combinations of 4 different air-to-air weapons: AIM-7 Fahrenheit per meter Sparrow missiles or AIM-120 AMRAAM advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles on its lower fuselage corners, AIM-9 liters per meter Sidewinder or AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles on 2 pylons under the wings, and an internal M61A 120mm Gatling gun in the right wing root. Low-drag conformal fuel tanks were developed for the F-15C and D models. They can be attached to the sides of the engine air intake trunks under each wing and are designed to the same load factors and air speed limits as the basic aircraft. They degrade performance by increasing drag and cannot be jettisoned in flight. Each conformal fuel tank can hold 750 US gallons of fuel. These tanks increase range and reduce the need for in-flight refueling. All external stations for munitions remain available with the tanks in use. Moreover, Sparrow or AMRAAM missiles can be attached to the corners of the conformal fuel tanks. The 57FIS based at Keflavik NAS, Iceland was the only C-model squadron to use CFTs on a regular basis due to its extended operations over the North Atlantic. With the closure of the 57FIS, the F-15E is the only variant to carry them on a routine basis. CFTs have also been sold to Israel and Saudi Arabia. Upgrades. The F-15E Strike Eagle is a 2-seat, dual-role, totally integrated fighter for all-weather, air-to-air and deep interdiction missions. The rear cockpit is upgraded to include 4 multi-purpose CRT displays for aircraft systems and weapons management. The digital, triple-redundant Lear-Siegler flight control system permits coupled automatic terrain following, enhanced by a ring laser gyro-inertial navigation system. For low-altitude, high-speed penetration and precision attack on tactical targets at night or in adverse weather, the F-15E carries a high-resolution APG-70 radar and LANTIRN pods to provide thermal imagery. The APG-63, active electronically scan array radar has been retrofitted to 18 U.S. Air Force F-15C aircraft. This upgrade includes most of the new hardware from the APG-63, but adds an AESA to provide increased pilot situational awareness. The AESA radar has an exceptionally agile beam, providing nearly instantaneous track updates and enhanced multi-target tracking capability. The APG-63, is compatible with current F-15C weapon loads and enables pilots to take full advantage of AIM-120 capabilities, simultaneously guiding multiple missiles to several targets widely spaced in azimuth, elevation, or range. Operational history, introduction and early service. The largest operator of the F-15 is the United States Air Force. The first Eagle was delivered November 13, 1974. In January 1976, the first Eagle destined for a combat squadron, the 555th TFS, was delivered. These initial aircraft carried the Hughes aircraft APG-63 radar. The first F-15 kill was scored by Israeli Air Force ace Moshe Melnick in 1979. In 1979 81, during Israeli raids against Palestinian factions based in Lebanon, F-15 claimed downing 13 Syrian MiG-21 Fishbeds, and 2 Syrian MiG-25 Foxbats, the latter being the aircraft the F-15 was designed to kill. Syrians have confirmed the loss of 11 MiG-21s and 2 MiG-25s and claimed downing 5 F-15s, 3 by MiG-21s and 2 by MiG-25s. plus 2 F-15s were downed by SAM. Israeli F-15s and BS participated as escorts in Operation Opera and served during the 1982 Lebanon War. During the latter, Israeli F-15s shot down 40 Syrian jet fighters and 1 Syrian SA-342 Al-Gazelle helicopter. According to Israel, some F-15s were damaged in air combat with MiG-21s. In one case, on June 9, a MiG-21 scored a direct hit on an F-15's engine with an A-60 missile. One engine was totally destroyed and the F-15 caught fire. The second engine continued to work and the F-15 returned to base, enveloped in flames. However, according to Syria, 5 F-15s were shot down by MiG-21s and 3 by MiG-23MLs. Later in 1985, during Operation Wooden Leg, IAF Eagles bombed the PLO headquarters in Tunisia. This was one of the few times air superiority F-15s were used in tactical strike missions. The air-to-ground role for the air superiority variants became more frequently used in Israeli service from the early 2000s with the integration of GPS-guided bombs. Royal Saudi Air Force F-15C pilots reportedly shot down 2 Iranian Air Force F-4E Phantom IIs in a skirmish in June 1984. Anti-satellite trials. The ASM-135 missile was designed to be a standoff anti-satellite weapon, with the F-15 acting as a first stage. The Soviet Union could correlate a U.S. rocket launch with a spy satellite loss, but an F-15 carrying an ASAT would blend in among hundreds of F-15 flights. From January 1984 to September 1986, 2 F-15s were used as launch platforms for the ASAT missile. The F-15s were modified to carry one ASM-135 on the centerline station with extra equipment within a special centerline pylon. The launch aircraft executed a Mach 1.22, 3.8 G climb at 65 degrees to release the ASAT missile at an altitude of 38,100 ft. The flight computer was updated to control the zoom climb and missile release. The third test flight involved a retired P-78-1 Solar Observatory satellite in a 345-mile orbit, which was destroyed by kinetic energy. The pilot, USAF Major Wilbert D. Doug Pearson, became the only pilot to destroy a satellite. The ASAT program involved 5 test launches. The program was officially terminated in 1988. Gulf War and aftermath. The USAF began deploying F-15C, D and E model aircraft to the Persian Gulf region in August 1990 for Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. During Gulf War combat against Iraqi forces, the F-15 accounted for 36 of the 39 air-to-air victories by the U.S. Air Force. Iraq has confirmed the loss of 23 of its aircraft in air-to-air combat. F-15s were operated mainly at night, hunting modified Scud missile launchers and artillery sites using the LANTIRN system. According to the USAF, its F-15CS had 34 confirmed kills of Iraqi aircraft during the 1991 Gulf War, mostly by missile fire, 5 MiG-29 Fulcrums, 2 MiG-25 Foxbats, 8 MiG-23 Floggers, 2 MiG-21 Fishbeds, 2 Su-25 Frogfoots, 4 Su-22 Fitters, 1 Su-7, 6 Mirage F-1S, 1 Il-76 cargo plane, 1 Pilatus PC-9 trainer, and 2 Mi-8 helicopters, but not all these victories have confirmed by Iraq. Air superiority was achieved in the first 3 days of the conflict. Many of the later kills were reportedly of Iraqi aircraft fleeing to Iran, rather than trying to engage U.S. aircraft. The single-seat F-15C was used for air superiority, and the F-15E was heavily used in air-to-ground attacks. An F-15E achieved an aerial kill of another Iraqi Mi-8 helicopter using a laser-guided bomb during the air war. The F-15E sustained 2 losses to ground fire in the Gulf War in 1991. Another one was damaged on the ground by a Scud strike on Dhahran Air Base. On November 11, 1990, a Saudi Air Force pilot defected with the F-15C fighter to Sudan during Operation Desert Shield. Saudi Arabia paid $40 million for return of the aircraft, 3 months later. RSAF F-15s shot down two Iraqi Mirage F-1s during the Operation Desert Storm. According to Saudis, one F-15C was lost to a crash during the Gulf War in 1991. The IRAF claims this fighter was part of two F-15Cs that engaged two Iraqi MiG-25PDs, and that this F-15C was hit by a 40 missile before crashing. They have since been deployed to support Operation Southern Watch, the patrolling of the no-fly zone in southern Iraq. Operation Provide Comfort in Turkey. In support of NATO operations in Bosnia, and recent Air Expeditionary Force deployments. In 1994, two U.S. Army Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawks were mistakenly downed by USAF F-15Cs in northern Iraq in a friendly fire incident. USAF F-15Cs shot down four Yugoslav MiG-29s using AIM-120 missiles during NATO's 1999 intervention in Kosovo, Operation Allied Force. Structural defects. All F-15 aircraft were grounded by the U.S. Air Force after a Missouri Air National Guard F-15C came apart in flight and crashed on November 2, 2007. The newer F-15E fleet was later cleared for continued operations. The U.S. Air Force reported on November 28, 2007 that a critical location in the upper longerons on the F-15C model was suspected of causing the failure, causing the fuselage forward of the air intakes, including the cockpit and radome, to separate from the airframe. F-15A through D model aircraft were grounded until the location received more detailed inspections and repairs as needed. The grounding of F-15s received media attention as it began to place strains on the nation's air defense efforts. The grounding forced some states to rely on their neighboring states' fighters for air defense protection, and Alaska to depend on Canadian Forces fighter support. On January 8, 2008, the USAF Air Combat Command cleared a portion of its F-15A through D model fleet for return to flying status. It also recommended a limited return to flight for units worldwide using the affected models. The Accident Review Board report was released on January 10, 2008. The report stated that analysis of the F-15C wreckage determined that the longeron did not meet drawing specifications, which led to fatigue cracks and finally a catastrophic failure of the remaining support structures and breakup of the aircraft in flight. In a report released on January 10, 2008, 9 other F-15s were identified to have similar problems in the longeron. As a result of these problems, General John D. W. Corley stated that the long-term future of the F-15 is in question. On February 15, 2008, ACC cleared all its grounded F-15ACD fighters for flight pending inspections, engineering reviews and any needed repairs. ACC also recommended release of other US F-15ACD aircraft. Recent service, Indian Air Force Su-30MKs, MiG-29s and other fighters achieved success in air combat exercises against USAF F-15Cs during COPE India in February 2004. The USAF and IAF agreed not to use BVR missiles, AIM-120 AMRAAM and AA-12 ADA respectively, for the exercise. During the USAF's Red Flag Advanced Combat Training exercises in 2008, American F-15CS, F-16CS, and F-22s bested Indian Su-30MKIs. The Su-30s reportedly operated with their radars in training mode to keep their signals secret. The F-15 in all air forces had a combined air-to-air combat record of 104 kills to 0 losses of February 2008. No air superiority versions of the F-15 have been shot down by enemy forces. Over half of F-15 kills were achieved by Israeli Air Force pilots. On September 16, 2009, the last F-15A, an Oregon Air National Guard aircraft, was retired, marking the end of service for the F-15A and F-15B models in the United States. With the retirement of the F-15A and B models, the F-15C and D models are being supplemented in U.S. service by the F-22 Raptor. However, since F-22 production has been halted, the F-15 may be in service in current squadrons much longer than originally thought. As of 2013, Regular Air Force F-15C and F-15D fighters are based overseas with the Pacific Air Forces at Kadena AB in Japan and with the U.S. Air Forces in Europe at RAF Lakenheath in the United Kingdom. Other regular Air Force F-15s are operated by Air Combat Command as adversary aggressor platforms at Nellis AFB, Nevada, and by Air Force Material Command in test and evaluation roles at Edwards AFB, California and Eglin AFB, Florida. All remaining combat-coded F-15CS and F-15DS are operated by the Air National Guard. USAF is upgrading 178 F-15CDS with the ANAPG-63B, 3 ESA radar, and upgrade other F-15s with the Joint Helmet-Mounted Cueing System. The Air Force plans to keep 178 F-15CDS along with 224 F-15Es in service beyond 2025. The F-15E will remain in service for years to come because of the model's primary air-to-ground role and the lower number of hours on the F-15E airframes. As part of the Air Force's FY 2015 budget, the F-15C faces cuts or retirement in response to sequestration. Cuts focus on platforms with single-mission capabilities. The retirement of some 250 F-15C fighters would save maintenance and upgrade costs, which could be redirected to speed procurement of the F-35 Lightning II. The air-to-air combat role would be taken up preeminently by the F-22 Raptor, while the F-35 would support it in conjunction with the Raptor. Even with this option being considered, the F-15C fleet is likely to be preserved to some degree, even if total fleet numbers drop. The Air Force's FY 2015 budget proposal would reduce the F-15C fleet by 51 aircraft. Variants, basic models. F-15A, single-seat all-weather air superiority fighter version, 384 built 1972 €79. F-15B, two-seat training version, formerly designated TF-15A, 61 built 1972 €79. F-15C, improved single-seat all-weather air superiority fighter version, 483 built 1979 €85. The last 43 F-15CS were upgraded with ANAPG-70 radar and later the ANAPG-63B-1 radar. F-15D, two-seat training version, 92 built 1979 €85. F-15J, single-seat all-weather air superiority fighter version for the Japan Air Self-Defense Force 139 built under license in Japan by Mitsubishi 1981 €97, 2 built in St. Louis. F-15DJ, two-seat training version for the Japan Air Self-Defense Force 12 built in St. Louis, and 25 built under license in Japan by Mitsubishi during 1981 €97. F-15NC Eagle, the F-15N was a carrier-capable variant proposed in the early 1970s to the U.S. Navy as an alternative to the heavier and, at the time, considered as riskier technology program, the Grumman F-14 Tomcat. The F-15N PHX was another proposed naval version capable of carrying the AIM-54 Phoenix missile. These featured folding wingtips, reinforced landing gear and a stronger tailhook for shipboard operation. F-15E Strike Eagle, see McDonnell Douglas F-15E Strike Eagle for F-15E, F-15I, F-15S, F-15K, F-15SG, and other F-15E-based variants. F-15SE Silent Eagle, see Boeing F-15SE Silent Eagle for proposed F-15E variant with a reduced radar signature. Prototypes. 12 prototypes were built and were used for trials by the F-15 Joint Test Force at Edwards Air Force Base using McDonnell Douglas and United States Air Force personnel. Many of the prototypes were later used by NASA for trials and experiments. F-15A-1, AFSAIR. Number 71-280, was the first F-15 to fly on July 11, 1972 from Edwards Air Force Base. It was used as a trial aircraft for exploring the flight envelope, general handling and testing the carriage of external stores. F-15A-1, AFSAIR. Number 71-281, the second prototype first flew on September 26, 1972 and was used to test the F-100 engine. F-15A2, AFSAIR. Number 71-282, first flew on November 4, 1972 and was used to test the APG-62 radar and avionics. F-15A2, AFSAIR. Number 71-283, first flew on January 13, 1973 and was used as a structural test aircraft. It was the first aircraft to have the smaller wingtips to clear a severe buffet problem found on earlier aircraft. F-15A2, AFSAIR. Number 71-284, first flew on March 7, 1973. It was used for armament development and was the first aircraft fitted with an internal cannon. F-15A3, AFSAIR. Number 71-285, first flew on May 23, 1973 and was used to test the missile fire control system and other avionics. F-15A3, AFSAIR. Number 71-286, first flew on June 14, 1973 and was used for armament trials and testing external fuel stores. F-15A4, AFSAIR. Number 71-287, first flew on August 25, 1973 and was used for spin recovery, angle of attack and fuel system testing. It was fitted with an anti-spin recovery parachute. The aircraft was loaned to NASA from 1976 for engine development trials. F-15A4, AFSAIR. Number 71-288. First flew on October 20, 1973 and was used to test integrated aircraft and engine performance. It was later used by McDonnell Douglas as a test aircraft in the 1990s. F-15A4, AFSAIR. Number 71-289. First flew on January 30, 1974 and was used for trials on the radar, avionics and electronic warfare systems. F-15B3, AFSAIR. Number 71-290, the first two-seat prototype originally designated the TF-15A, it first flew on July 7, 1973. F-15B4, AFSAIR. Number 71-291, first flew on October 18, 1973 as a TF-15A and used as a test and demonstration aircraft. In 1976 it made an overseas sales tour painted in markings to celebrate the bicentenary of the United States. Research and test. F-15 Strike Eagle, one stripped of most avionics and unpainted F-15A, demonstrated the fighter's acceleration. Broke 8-time to climb world records between January 16 and February 1, 1975 at Grand Forks AFB, ND. It was delivered to the National Museum of the United States Air Force in December 1980. F-15 STOLMTD, the first F-15B was converted into a short takeoff and landing, maneuver technology demonstrator aircraft. In the late 1980s it received canard flight surfaces in addition to its usual horizontal tail, along with squared thrust vectoring nozzles. It was used as a short takeoff maneuver technology demonstrator. F-15 Active, the F-15 SMTD was later converted into an advanced flight control technology research aircraft with thrust vectoring nozzles. F-15 IFCS, the F-15 Active was then converted into an intelligent flight control systems research aircraft. F-15 B-71-0290 was the oldest F-15 still flying when retired in January 2009. F-15 Manx, concept name for a tailless variant of the F-15 Active, but the NASA Active experimental aircraft was never modified to be tailless. F-15 Flight Research Facility, two F-15A aircraft were acquired in 1976 for use by NASA's Dryden Flight Research Center for numerous experiments such as highly integrated digital electronic control, adaptive engine control system, self-repairing and self-diagnostic flight control system and propulsion-controlled aircraft system. 71-0281, the second flight test F-15A, was returned to the Air Force and became a static display at Langley AFB in 1983. F-15B Research Testbed, acquired in 1993, It was an F-15B modified and used by NASA's Dryden Flight Research Center for flight tests. Operators. Israeli Air Force has operated F-15 since 1977. The IAF has 43 F-15ACD aircraft in service as of January 2011. Japan Air Self-Defense Force operates Mitsubishi F-15J and F-15DJ fighters. Saudi Arabia, Royal Saudi Air Force has 70 F-15CD Eagles in operation as of January 2011. USA, United States Air Force operates 254 F-15CD aircraft as of September 2010. NASA used to test highly integrated digital engine control system at Edwards AFB, 1988, notable accidents. On May 1, 1983, an Israeli Air Force F-15D collided with the Douglas A-4 Skyhawk during training. Unknown to pilot Zivi Nadivi and his co-pilot, the right wing was sheared off roughly 2 feet from the fuselage. The A-4 disintegrated and its pilot safely ejected, while the F-15 nosed down and entered a violent roll. Zivi decided to attempt recovery and engaged afterburner to increase speed, allowing him to regain control. The pilot was able to prevent stalling and maintain control because of the lift generated by the large horizontal surface area of the fuselage, the stabilators, and remaining wing areas. The F-15 landed at twice the normal speed to maintain the necessary descent and its tailhook was torn off during the landing. Zivi managed to bring his F-15 to a complete stop approximately 20 ft from the end of the runway. He was later quoted as saying, "It's highly likely that if I would have seen it clearly, I would have ejected." The fuel leak and vapors along the wing had prevented him from seeing what had happened to the wing itself. The aircraft was repaired and saw further combat service. On March 19, 1990, an F-15 from the 3rd Wing stationed at Elmendorf AFB, Alaska accidentally fired an AIM-9M Sidewinder missile at another F-15. The damaged aircraft was able to make an emergency landing. It was subsequently repaired and returned to service. This was not in combat, but does mark the first time an F-15 was struck by an air-to-air missile, accident or otherwise. On November 22, 1995, during air intercept training over the Sea of Japan, a Japanese F-15J flown by Lieutenant Tozumi Higuchi was shot down by an AIM-9L Sidewinder missile inadvertently fired by his wingman in an accident similar to the one that occurred on March 19, 1990. The pilot ejected safely. Both F-15JS involved were from JASDF 303rd Squadron, Komatsu AFB. On March 26, 2001, 2 U.S. Air Force F-15Cs crashed near the summit of Ben Macdui in the Cairngorms during a low-flying training exercise over the Scottish Highlands. Both Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth John Hyvernan and Captain Kirk Jones died in the accident, which resulted in a court-martial for an RAF air traffic controller, who was later found not guilty. On November 2, 2007, a 27-year-old F-15C of the 131st Fighter Wing, Missouri Air National Guard, crashed following an in-flight breakup due to structural failure during combat training near St. Louis, Missouri. The pilot, Major Stephen W. Stilwell, ejected but suffered serious injuries. On November 3, 2007, all non-mission critical F-15s were grounded pending the crash investigation's outcome. Only in emergencies could these aircraft be used. By November 13, 2007, over 1,100 were grounded worldwide after Israel, Japan and Saudi Arabia grounded their aircraft as well. F-15s were cleared on November 15, 2007 pending individual inspections. On January 8, 2008, the USAF cleared 60% of the F-15ACD fleet to fly. On January 10, 2008, the Accident Review Board released its report, which attributed the crash to the longer and not meeting specifications. On February 15, 2008, the Air Force cleared all F-15s for flight, pending inspections and any needed repairs. In March 2008, Stilwell filed a lawsuit against Boeing. On February 20, 2008, 2 F-15Cs from the 58th Fighter Squadron, 33rd Fighter Wing at Eglin AFB, Florida, flown by First Lieutenant Ali Givenchy and Captain Tucker Hamilton, collided over the Gulf of Mexico during a training mission. Both pilots ejected and were rescued, but one died later from his injuries. The accident investigation report released August 25, 2008 found that the accident was the result of pilot error. Both pilots failed to clear their flight paths and anticipate their impending high-aspect, mid-air impact, according to Brigadier General Joseph Rains Jr., the leader of the investigation team. Specifications. Data from USAF Fact Sheet, Jane's All the World's Aircraft, Combat Legend, F-15 Eagle and Strike Eagle, General Characteristics, Crew, 1 pilot, Length, 63 feet 9 inches, Wingspan, 42 feet 10 in, Height, 18 feet 6 in, Wing Area, 608 FTA², Airfoil, NACA 64A 6.6 Route, NACA 64A203 Tip, Empty weight, 28,000 pounds, Loaded weight, 44,500 pounds, Max takeoff weight, 68,000 pounds, Power plant, 2A, Pratt & Whitney F100-100 or A. 220 afterburning turbofans, dry thrust, 14,590 pound-forces each, thrust with afterburner, 23,770 pound-forces for a 220 each. Fuel capacity, 13,455 pounds internal, performance, maximum speed, high altitude, Mach 2.5 plus, low altitude, Mach 1.2. Combat radius, 1,061 mi for interdiction mission, ferry range, 3,450 miles with conformal fuel tanks and 3 external fuel tanks, service ceiling, 65,000 feet, rate of climb, 50,000 feet per minute, wing loading, 73.1 pounds FTA², thrust weight, 1.07, maximum design G load, 9G, armament, guns, 1A, 20 mm M61 Vulcan 6-barreled Gatling cannon, 940 rounds, hardpoints, total 11, 2 under wing, 4 under fuselage and a single center-line pylon station, optional fuselage pylons Pack 4. Use on the C model, with a capacity of 16,000 lba and provisions to carry combinations of missiles 4A, AIM-7 Sparrow, 4A, AIM-9 Sidewinder, 8A, AIM-120 AMRAAM. Bombs, Mark 82, Mark 84, GBU-10, GBU-31. Other, up to 3A, 600 U.S. gallons external drop tanks for ferry flight or extended range loitering time. MXU-648 cargo travel pod Euro to carry personal belongings, and small pieces of maintenance equipment. Avionics, radar, Raytheon AN/APG-63 or AN/APG-70 or, Raytheon AN/APG-63, B-1 or, Raytheon AN/APG-63, B-2 active electronically scanned array or, Raytheon AN/APG-63, B-3 active electronically scanned array, joint helmet-mounted queuing system. Countermeasures, Northrop Grumman Electronic Systems AN/ALQ-131 Electronic Countermeasures Pod, Hazeltine AN/APX-76 or Raytheon AN/APX-119 Identify Friend-Foe Interrogator, Magnavox AN/ALQ-128 Electronic Warfare Warning Set a Euro part of Tactical Electronic Warfare Systems, Laurel AN/ALR-56 Radar Warning Receivers a Euro part of TEWS, Northrop Grumman Electronic Systems ALQ-135 Internal Countermeasures System a Euro part of TEWS, Marconi AN/AL-45 Chaff Flares Dispenser System a Euro part of TEWS. Aircraft on display. Although the F-15 continues to be a frontline fighter, a number of older USAF and IAF models have been retired, with several placed on outdoor display or in museums. These include, Germany, F-15A, 74-0085, Spandalum AB. 74-0109, Auto Technique Museum, Speyer. Netherlands, F-15A, 74-0083, Militair Luchtvaart Museum, Kamp Zeist. Japan, F-15A, 74-0088, Kadena AB. Israel, F-15A, 73-0098, Israeli Air Museum, Hatzerim. 73-0107, Gate Guard at Tel Ono FAB. United Kingdom, F-15A, 74-0131, Wings of Liberty Memorial Park, RAF Lakenheath, 76-0020, American Air Museum, Duford. United States, F-15A, 71-0280, Lackland AFB, Texas. 71-0281, Langley AFB, Virginia. 71-0283, Defense Supply Center Richmond, Richmond, Virginia. 71-0285, USAF Personal Recruiting Office, St. Louis, Missouri. 71-0286 Octave Chanute Aerospace Museum, Rantoul, Illinois. 72-0119 Strike Eagle in storage at the National Museum of the United States Air Force, Wright-Patterson AFB, Dayton, Ohio. 73-0085, Museum of Aviation, Robbins AFB, Warner Robins, Georgia. 73-0086, Louisiana Military Museum, Jackson Barracks, New Orleans, Louisiana. 73-0099, Robbins AFB, Warner Robins, Georgia. 74-0081, Elmendorf AFB, Alaska. 74-0084, Alaska Aviation Heritage Museum, Anchorage, Alaska. 74-0095, Tyndall AFB, Panama City, Florida. 74-0114, Mountain Home AFB, Idaho. 74-0117, Langley AFB, Virginia. 74-0118, Palmer Air and Space Museum, adjacent to Davis-Monthan AFB, Tucson, Arizona. 74-0119, Castle Air Museum, Atwater, California. 74-0124, Air Force Armament Museum, Eglin AFB, Florida. 75-0026, National Warplane Museum, Elmira Corning Regional Airport, New York. 75-0045, USS Alabama Battleship Memorial Park, Mobile, Alabama. 76-0008, Marchfield Air Museum at March ARB, Riverside, California. 76-0009, Kingsley Field. Air National Guard Base, Klamath Falls, Oregon. 76-0014, Evergreen Aviation Museum, McMinnville, Oregon. 76-0018, Hickam Field, Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, Oahu, Hawaii. 76-0024, Peterson Air and Space Museum, Peterson AFB, Colorado. 76-0027, National Museum of the United States Air Force, Wright-Patterson AFB, Dayton, Ohio. 76-0037, Holloman AFB, New Mexico. 76-0040, USAF Academy, Colorado Springs, Colorado. 76-0048, Maxfield Air Museum, Maxfield AFB, Washington. 76-0063, Pacific Aviation Museum, Ford Island, Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, Hawaii. 76-0066, Portland Air National Guard Base, Oregon. 76-0076, Roadside Park, DeBarry, Florida. 76-0080, Jacksonville Air National Guard Base, Florida. 76-0088, St. Louis Air National Guard Station, Lambert Field, Missouri. 76-0108, Lackland AFB Kelly Field Annex, Texas. 76-0110, Gate Guard, Mountain Home AFB, Idaho. 77-0068, Arnold AFB, Manchester, Tennessee. 77-0090, Hill Aerospace Museum, Hill AFB, Utah. 77-0102, Pacific Coast Air Museum, Charles M. Schultz Sonoma County Airport, Santa Rosa, California. One of two Massachusetts Air National Guard 102D fighter wing aircraft scrambled in first response to terrorist air attacks on September 11, 2001. 77-0146, Veterans Park, Callaway, Florida, 77-0150, Yanks Air Museum, Chino, California. F-15B, 73-0108, Luke AFB, Arizona, 73-0114, Air Force Flight Test Center Museum, Edwards AFB, California, 75-0084, on display at the Russell Military Museum located in Russell, Illinois. 77-0161, Seymour Johnson AFB, Goldsboro, North Carolina. Notable appearances in media. The F-15 was the subject of the IMAX movie Fighter Pilot, Operation Red Flag, about the Red Flag exercises. In Tom Clancy's non-fiction book, Fighter Wing, a detailed analysis of the Air Force's premier fighter aircraft, the F-15 Eagle and its capabilities are showcased. The F-15 has also been a popular subject as a toy, and a fictional likeness of an aircraft similar to the F-15 has been used in cartoons, books, video games, animated television series, and animated films. The F-15 was mentioned in a veteran's Old War story in the 2005 song Something to Be Proud of by Montgomery Gentry. See also: Fourth-generation jet fighter, related development, McDonnell Douglas F-15E Strike Eagle, McDonnell Douglas F-15 STOL Ltd, Boeing F-15SE Silent Eagle, aircraft of comparable role, configuration and era, Grumman F-14 Tomcat, Microne MiG-29M, Panavia Tornado ADV, Sukhoi Su-27/Shenyang J-11, related lists, list of fighter aircraft, list of active United States military aircraft, references, notes. Citations. Bibliography. Further reading, Braybrook, Roy. F-15 Eagle. London, Osprey Aerospace, 1991. ISBN 1-85532-149-1. Crickmore, Paul. McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle. New York, Smithmark Books, 1992. ISBN 0-8317-1408-5. Drendel, Lou. Eagle. Carrollton, Texas, Squadron Signal Publications, 1985. ISBN 0-8974-7271-3. Drendel, Lou and Don Carson. F-15 Eagle in Action. Carrollton, Texas, Squadron Signal Publications, 1976. ISBN 0-89747-023-0. Fitzsimmons, Bernard. Modern Fighting Aircraft, F-15 Eagle. London, Salamander Books Limited, 1983. ISBN 0-86101-182-1. Jething, Michael J. and Paul Crickmore. F-15. New York, Crescent Books, 1992. ISBN 0-517-06734-X. Kinsey, Bert. The F-15 Eagle in Detail and Scale. El Paso, Texas, Detail and Scale, Incorporated, 1978. ISBN 0-8168-5028-3. Reininger, Tyson v. F-15 Eagle at War. Minneapolis, USA, Zenith Press, 2009. ISBN A978-0-7603-3350-1. External links, F-15 Eagle USAF Fact Sheet, F-15 Eagle History page on Boeing.com, McDonnell Douglas F-15A, and F-15C on USAF National Museum website, F-15 Eagle in service with Israel, F-15 page on globalsecurity.org, the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle page on vectorsite.net.